Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second day of the Board of Registered Nursing Board meeting. It is February 16th, and we will take roll call to establish a quorum. My name is Dolores Trujillo, and I am a registered nurse appointed by Governor Newsom in the direct care provider role. I am also the current president of the board. Vice President Mary Fagan.
I'm Mary Fagan. I'm here. I'm the vice president, and I was appointed by Governor Newsom in the Nursing Services Administration role. Good morning, everyone.
Thank you, Mary. Elizabeth Woods.
I've heard from board staff that they're continuing to work to get her on.
Okay, we'll continue. Jovita Dominguez.
Good morning. My name is Jovita Dominguez, and I'm been appointed by Governor Newsom in the education role.
Thank you, Jovita. Patricia Nguyen.
Good morning, everyone. Tricia Nguyen. I was appointed by Governor Newsom in the public member role.
Thank you, Tricia. David Lawler.
Good morning. I'm David Lawler, also appointed by Governor Newsom in the public member role. Good to see you back, Dolores.
Thank you. Vicki Granowitz.
Vicki Granowitz. I'm a member of the public, appointed by Tony Atkins, President pro tempore of the Senate.
Okay. Our board executive officer, Loretta Melby.
Thank you, Dolores. I am Lori or Loretta Melby, and I'm the board's executive officer appointed by the board. And I was just told that Betty will be calling in. She's not able to access via her computer right now.
Okay. And our board counsel, Reza Pejjuhesh.
Good morning, everyone. This is Reza Pejjuhesh, the BRN's legal counsel.
Thank you, Reza. And is Betty on yet?
Let me work with the board moderator.
No,
are you able to see
yet.
a call-in number for her yet?
I believe we have a quorum, don't we?
We do have a quorum, yes.
So we can continue.
Yeah, we can get started. She's listening and joining, so she's active, and she'll be here real soon.
Great. So quorum has been established. BRN moderator, will you take us to the general instructions for the format of a teleconference call?
Good morning. This is the BRN moderator. I will be moderating the meeting. To facilitate public comment, we will be utilizing the WebEx question and answer feature. When the board reaches a point in the agenda at which public comment is appropriate, the question and answer feature will be turned on, and members of the public can indicate they would like to make a comment by inserting the phrase, "I would like to make a comment," in the question box, which is typically in the lower right of your screen. I will then call on the individual and unmute their microphone. The individual will have 2 minutes to make their comments. I will not give a warning as your time approaches. I will mute your microphone and will announce that your time has exceeded the time allotted. I will then move on to the next member of the public who has a comment. Please note that the question and answer feature is being used only as a means for members of the public to represent that they would like to make a verbal comment. This is not a means to ask questions of the moderator or members of the board, but they will choose to answer as long as the question is appropriate to the agenda item. If it is not part of the agenda, they will direct you to the correct part of the agenda to ask your question and or inquiry. Such inquiries submitted using this feature will not be answered as long as it's in the appropriate area. When asking a question, please make sure the question is directed at the host, me, in the dropdown. Let's see, I will provide a brief reminder of this approach at the start of each public comment item. Finally, when board members or senior staff are not speaking, I would like to remind them to mute their microphone. If I detect background noise during the meeting as a result of unmuted microphones, I will interject with a brief friendly reminder.
Thank you. Will you take us to public comment, please, sorry. Public comment for items not on the agenda.
Yes, and I believe Betty is on. Betty, can you unmute? Oh, let's see if I can unmute you. Betty, on your phone, it is *6 or pound 6.
I'm on.
There you go.
I should be unmuted
There you go.
now.
All right. Welcome back.
Okay.
Welcome, Betty.
Can I just leave it unmuted for the whole time so I don't have to go back and forth to this? Hello?
As
Yes,
long as you're quiet in the background, Betty.
I'll keep the noise out of the background. Only my cat and I here.
So Betty, would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, okay.
You didn't get away
This is
from that
Betty
one.
Woods. Right, I can figure that one out, I guess. This is Betty Woods, and I'm been on the board now for almost 10 years. I came in with Governor Brown, so that's me.
All right. Thank you, Betty.
Yeah.
Thanks, Betty. Thank you. All right. I am sorry. We will be opening for public comment now. I will be activating the question and answer feature. Please refer to the screen share for
Hey,
members
Mark.
of the public. Yes.
Mark, we actually do not have to do public comment
Oh.
for items on the agenda that was taken care of yesterday, and this is a continuation of yesterday's meeting.
Okay.
So we can go right into the agenda item that was up yesterday, which was 8.2.6. And I can see that Marianne McCarthy is elevated.
Julie France has been elevated. Did I need to elevate anybody else?
Who else has been
let's-
elevated?
Julie, are
Julie
there any
France.
other members that from your program that need to be elevated?
Please elevate Tim Lee. He's here with me.
Oh, is he with you or is he online? He's with you.
He's
Okay.
with me.
We're in the same room. Thank you.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And do we have the opportunity to make a quick comment regarding our application?
Yeah, one moment. We're actually going to reopen the agenda. We'll make sure that our board members are set, and then we will open it back to you all.
Awesome.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem.
I was not here yesterday. If I could have a brief synopsis of
Yes.
what American Career College is asking for, please.
Absolutely. So Marianne McCarthy, Jovita, are you able to unmute and work with Marianne to get this agenda item open?
Yes, excuse me. So Marianne McCarthy, could you help us recap what happened, well, how we left yesterday and how we started the conversation with American Career College?
Yes, so it's agenda item 8.2.6. It's the discussion and possible action regarding acceptance of a substantive change to an approved program, American Career College Associate Degree Nursing Program enrollment increase. Their information is again on page 69 of the packet, and they have been elevated. American Career College has asked for a substantial change with an enrollment increase at their Los Angeles campus for the spring of 23. There are 2 campuses with ADN programs in Southern California. The Los Angeles campus was approved in 2015, and the campus in Ontario was approved by the board in 2021. They currently enroll 30 students 5 times a year for an annual enrollment of 150 students, and they're requesting 50 students 5 times a year for an annual enrollment of 250 students. So this is an enrollment increase of 100 students. On the agenda item summary, we did talk yesterday about their use of the centralized clinical placement system as their consortium. Their NCLEX pass rates are listed. Their attrition rate is listed. I believe we took, and Lori, correct me if I'm wrong, we started public comment. I don't know if we finished public comment. Did we finish public comment?
We did not finish public comment.
Okay.
There was no motion
Okay.
at this point.
I believe,
This is Reza.
oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, Jovita. I was just gonna, for Dolores's benefit and just to kind of remind everyone, there was some, I guess some folks that the university had wanted to speak, but it was past 5 p.m. and the board had had a full day of meeting by then. And unfortunately, we had to carry over the discussion to today, despite the fact that I think some people may have been still wanting to speak. But the fact was, at that point of the discussion, it seemed like there was still quite a bit to go, and it was not, going to be kind of wrapped up imminently. So we carried it over to today. So there may be further comment from the board. I think we offered as well, if they wanted to submit their comments in writing, if they were unavailable today, that we would certainly accommodate that. So I'm not sure if anyone did write in lieu of being present today, but that was where we left off with the commenting.
Yeah, once
Thank
the
you, Reza.
school has a chance to speak, I will share some of the emails that I have received, but I will let the school speak first.
Thank you, E.O. Melby. Thank you, everybody, for being here this morning. I'm glad to see everybody. There were some interesting events that took place last night after our meeting, and I just want to kind of address those as we proceed today. There was an email sent out last night at 8:45 p.m. from a program director at a local community college, actually not even in Los Angeles, but was sent out to several program directors in the area, asking them to come out and speak against our program and our application. It's a sad day in nursing when we have one program speaking out against another. Worse yet, one nurse speaking against another. I'm just astonished that anyone would actively prevent any student from being able to pursue their dream of becoming a registered nurse. You got your chance, and everybody deserves their own. You will hear from our students. They have tried to get into the community colleges, but were turned away. We're not trying to replace community colleges. We're just only an alternative for the students who are denied. As you can see by our NCLEX pass rates and retention rates, those are good students and good nurses that if it were not for us, these students would have been turned away from the nursing profession. Our program and application is about access to quality education for the underserved communities we represent. You will probably hear from that program director and maybe others that will speak out against us and quote displacement. There's that word again. Can anyone tell me how you measure displacement or impact? They can't. There's no formula that says X plus Y equals displacement. In fact, you do not hear the hospitals or private colleges talk about impact or displacement. People will have you think that the only cause of displacement is the growth of programs. That is not the case. There are many causes of displacement. I've been in nursing education for 20 years, and the single biggest cause of displacement is census at a hospital facility. Another cause is student behavior, and another cause is the faculty behavior. See, in reality, at least when it comes to our program, displacement is not a factor. We are very purposeful to not displace any other program, especially our community colleges. They have been around for a long time and usually have the best rotations. Those are the Monday through Thursday 8 to 2 rotations. We are able to schedule our students around those where facilities have openings, so we do not displace any other schools or students. Now, I also want to address something that E.O. Melby mentioned yesterday. Yes, at times our students do rotate in the evening or on the weekend. She alluded yesterday that those are not good rotations because the staff at those times are not experienced. That may be true, but I wanted to clarify to this board, the public, and our members of the California State Assembly. Hello?
Maybe mute for a moment. You're getting feedback.
Okay.
I think that sounds better now.
Okay. So like I said, that may be true that those nurses on those shifts may be less experienced, but I did want to clarify to this board, the public, and our members of the California State Assembly that are watching today, that this is not the floor nurse that is teaching or supervising our students on these rotations. It is our experienced, highly qualified faculty that are supervising and teaching those students, and not the floor nurses that are tending to patients. It was also intimated that students are not welcome. As you heard from the CEO that spoke yesterday, they welcome students because they have a tremendous value on the floor in improving patient connectivity and patient care. If you do believe in displacement and impact, and you follow E.O. Melby's geography lesson yesterday, where LA runs into OC and OC runs into San Diego and runs into the Inland Empire and runs into the Imperial Valley and so on, then impact hits everybody. And since LA is impacted, UCLA should not have had an enrollment increase approved. Neither should have West Hills or nor RCC should not have been approved. If there is truly impact and displacement, then that problem was exacerbated yesterday by those approvals. I'm not saying that those programs should not have been approved. I'm saying that they should. But if there's truly displacement, either all programs should either be approved together or denied today. It is unfortunate that there's a philosophical debate going on that pits public versus private, and that those biases are determining winners and losers, when in fact the only losers are students who are desperately in need of access to nursing education. Also, the losers are the people who are turned away from healthcare facilities or hospitals because there are not enough nurses to staff these hospitals. Tell a family member that we will have enough nurses in 2037 as long as there's not another pandemic or crisis by then. The mission of the California Board of Nursing is to protect California's healthcare consumer and promote quality nursing care. Continuing to limit access to nursing education and nurses as our state faces a crisis in nursing staffing is a direct contradiction to that mission. Again, as stated yesterday, there are only 4 objective criteria that this board may consider when determining the approval of an enrollment increase. We have clearly demonstrated we are in compliance with each one of those, and there are no objective criteria to deny our application. Thank you very much.
Board President, because you were not here yesterday, do you have any areas of that you would like to have clarified?
Well, LA is an impacted area. We know that because we've had schools that are closing in Southern California because they can't get clinical space.
I would repeat that.
I'm talking. Thank you. Okay.
Real quick, Dolores, I would like to, with the help of Reza, set down some ground rules here. Absolutely, we do elevate school representatives to the panel. The panel is reserved for board members, myself as executive officer, board moderator, and legal counsel. And on invite, the people that are representing the schools and any presentation that's part of our agenda item. We do ask for the ability for each person to speak, finish their statements, and then have a robust conversation without speaking over people. We do not have a raise hand ability on this webinar, so we do need to make sure that we are able to give that common courtesy to the people that are trying to have their messages sent and heard and received. And so I ask that when somebody is speaking that you do wait for a time to be either asked a question or to respectfully ask if you could respond to a question. I think that would go a long way today, as these are very difficult decisions that have to be made. It has been an unusual practice for our board to deny enrollment increases, and we know that it has a kind of a shocking effect when that does occur. So please listen with respect and take a moment to respond with respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. So this is a clinically impacted area. We've heard it in public comments. We've heard from the schools. We've heard from some of the students. My concern is that while UCLA has asked for 13 increased enrollment, ACC is asking for over 100 or about 100. Let's say 150 to 250, about 100, which makes a huge impact in that area for clinical space. And I just, I would like to know why this area. There are so many areas. Yes, we can use nursing schools. There's the Central Valley, there's Northern California, there's maybe Riverside. There are other areas that can be grown. Why the LA and even Orange County area?
Is that a question?
Yes, that is a question.
Thank you, Dolores. So again, you weren't here yesterday, and clinical displacement is an amorphous term. We do not see that. We've demonstrated we have to make the decisions based on objective criteria. We've demonstrated in our submission in attachment 10, exhibit 10, that we have the clinical placements to support the growth. That's the only thing you can make a decision on. LA, Los Angeles, there are 20 designated medically underserved areas in Los Angeles. There's an acute need for RNs in Los Angeles. You'll hear from our students, you'll hear from our facilities. They cannot hire enough nurses to staff their facilities. They need them. The clinical displacements, yes, there is a tough time getting rotations Monday through Thursday from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. We have no problem getting enough rotations for our students in our program. Our program, 86% of our students identify as minority. Dolores, we presented yesterday, our on-time completion rates are 96%. Our placement rates are 95%. The average starting salary for our graduates last year was $87,000 for their first year out of school. Our program is a beacon to the community in downtown Los Angeles. We're surrounded by several immigrant communities that have poor access to healthcare. Most importantly, they don't have access to RNs that speak their native language. 46% of our population is Latino, with another 30% being Asian. Our program is built of students from our community, and they serve the hospitals in our community. 47% of our graduates work in hospitals within 10 miles of our campus. So though there's clinical displacement, Dolores, we do not see that. We do not have that. You will have hospitals today speak that they will have the ability to support the growth of our program, as well as UCLA, as well as LA Community College. There are clinical placements. However, if you're only trying to rotate between Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., yes, those are limited. We don't have the challenge, Dolores. We provided objective criteria that shows, objective data that shows we have the clinical placements to support the growth. And that's the only information that this board is actually supposed to be acting on.
Do you track your job placement for your graduates?
We do. That's how I'm able to give you that data. Dolores, we have a 96% completion rate, on-time completion rate, 95% placement rate, Dolores. 9 out of 10 students who start our program, Dolores, become registered nurses. And these are all students that were turned away from the community college. I agree, our program is not cheap. If a student can get into the community college, they should go there first, but they can't get there. So what we're doing is we're providing access to these students who cannot get into the community college. The community colleges are great. I applaud them. I'm a graduate of the community college. I support it. But the problem is it's so competitive to get into those free programs. Only 4.0 students are getting in, the best of the best. And usually you have to take 2 to 3 years of gen eds to apply before you apply to the community college. Our minority and underserved communities usually have to work to support their families or to pay their bills because mom and dad isn't paying it for them after they graduate high school. So it's really tough for them to get 4.0s. So those students are being shut out for the cheap or the free programs. Our program, it provides access. The students can make the choice. And they do. Our students love our program. We have a great program. And most importantly, we're turning out quality nurses into an area that desperately needs RNs, especially RNs that speak a language other than English.
And you're saying that all of your graduates get hired?
We have 95% placement rate. So there may be 1 or 2 students a year that go on to do other things. Our NCLEX pass rate this year for the 3 quarters that could, our NEC could attest is 98% this year through the first 3 quarters of this year. We have an amazing program. And Dolores, like I said, the average starting salary for our RNs last year was $87,000. I'm begging my son to come take the program. He just doesn't want to be a nurse. I mean, it's an amazing program.
Board President, to provide some clarification on some of the items that he did speak on, I would like to take a moment to provide additional information to our board members to consider.
Thank you.
He is stating that in the law that we as a board are only able to consider clinical placements for enrollment increases. That is absolutely incorrect. And I will read the section of our law that addresses that for you all. On 2786.2, it says for approved schools of nursing that are actively accredited by an institutional or programmatic accreditor recognized by the United States Department of Education, the board shall, without requiring additional documentation or action, do the following unless unrelated to the scope of accreditation. So I want to make sure that we call attention to the unless unrelated to the scope of the accreditation, and I'll provide some additional clarification on that. Additionally, underneath that section, that is 2786 little b1, there are other letters, big A through F, and then it goes into number 2 and number 3.
2786.2. Sorry, Lori.
Sorry. Thank you, Reza. On E, it says accept substantive change request as defined under the uniform method developed under subdivision E of section 2786, if approved by the accreditor, unless the request is to request for increased enrollment or perform a major curriculum revision. The uniform methods are in development with me, have not been released yet. This is a bill that went into effect January 1, and we are continuing as a board to work to come into compliance with it. It also says, if approved by the accreditor, unless the request is to increase enrollment or perform a major curriculum revision. So then it moves down to F, where it says, when considering a request to increase enrollment, the board may consider only the following factors related to the ability to adequately train additional students. 1, adequacy of resources, including but not limited to faculty, facilities, equipment, and supplies. This is where you consider, do they have enough clinical spaces? Do they have enough faculty? Do they have the appropriate equipment support at the school setting? What is kind of all encompassing in there for adequacy of resources? Number 2, availability of clinical placements. When you look at 1427, which is our California Code of Regulations, they talk about clinical facility placement and approval by our board. In 1427, that is the regulation or the policy essentially that carries out clinical facility approvals. As part of that, they ask, are those clinical sites able to meet the objectives of the program? Do they, are the placements appropriate? And those must be proven. It also asks us, as part of 1427, that says, in selecting a new clinical agency or facility for student placement, the program shall take into consideration the impact that an additional group of students would have on students of other nursing programs already assigned to the agency or facility. So that does grow from that statute so that you guys are able to take that into consideration. It also says complaints that have been verified by the board from students, faculty, or other interested parties. Those complaints can be the ones that are voiced here today in public comment, yesterday in public comment, complaints that we receive from other interested parties. Those other interested parties are not just limited to the students that attend that school, the faculty that teach at that facility, that school, or within that setting. So we do have the ability to look at complaints from other interested parties. It is also in the law that says licensing examination pass rates, graduation rates, and retention rates can be looked at. It also gave us V, which is really a gift. Any other similar factors specified by the board in regulations. So this allows for us to look at our current regulations. In our current regulations in 1427, it talks about clinical displacement. We can absolutely look at that, and we can look at the effects that it has on other clinical sites. on other nursing schools in that area. It also allows for us to develop regulations and then go through that process. As we've known as a board over the past few years, regulation development takes a year or two for that to happen. But because they have the statement that says any other similar factors specified by the board in regulations, we do have the ability to take a look at that. The board shall not consider nursing workforce issues, including those identified under section 2717 as factors for purpose of this subparagraph. That was the conversation that we had yesterday talking about 6.3. And what used to happen in the last year or so, the NECs that would bring a school forward, because the California State Auditors recommended that, is they included a single line statement on each one of the agenda item summaries that talked about the workforce issues that were identified under 2717. They would make statements that said the data presented by the school is in alignment with the data that the board has from its workforce survey. Or they will say that the data that presented by the school is not in alignment with what the data the board has as part of their workforce survey. And that became essentially the area of conversation with our board around making those enrollment decisions. And it kind of created a tunnel vision. Our nursing programs and a lot of the stakeholders at that point thought that because that was the outward discussion that was visible from our board members when looking at enrollment increases, that was really the only things that were looked at when looking at enrollment increases. We operate in a web or a net of some sort with other boards of nursing throughout the nation, with national councils and state boards of nursing. And in fact, California holds 13% of all nurses in the nation. We have grown exponentially over the last few years, and we have more nurses now than we've ever had in California. And we do still have hospitals, as we heard yesterday, and I'm sure we'll hear today, that are in need of RN support. And as a board, that's why yesterday we started the conversation looking at how we address workforce and develop a plan. So one of the things that Joanne Spetz, who does our workforce and does our school surveys, mentioned in her report is that students move. Students, the impacted areas where we're looking at workforce demand workforce demand should not be the issue that the board considers for enrollment, because you produce a student in Imperial Valley, and I'm just using an example, this is not real information, and say Imperial Valley has no workforce demand at this point, that they actually have more RNs than what is needed in those to take care of the population in that area. It doesn't mean stop producing RNs in that area. Those RNs can move throughout the state of California and in fact throughout the nation. So it would be something that the board would need to understand and not say, I'm not going to have this school in Imperial Valley continue to produce nursing students because they have enough nurses in Imperial Valley. And so that's where that workforce conversation kind of starts and ends, right? Because we know that there's a portability of nurses. But it doesn't take away the factors that we have in F1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, as well as 2, where it talks about complaint or evidence that we can look at, and looking at any other similar factors. And so I wanted to really provide that clarification of what is currently in our sunset bill. And Reza, did I miss anything, or did you need to do any clarification on that? Because we know that you are the absolute expert at these. And sometimes I don't clarify it as well as I could.
Well, thanks, Lori. That's maybe gratuitous, but you did a great job. I appreciate you bringing attention to the factors that the school representative was referring to and kind of expanding on that. I wanted to actually take a moment and I had a somewhat related comment, but not specifically on the statute. Was it, I'm sorry, I want to get this correct. Is it Tim Lee? Is that who we have from the university?
It is, and I'd actually like to dispute the fact that we could use public comment in could kind of craft or shape our thing, but the actual statute and the regulation, it says complaints that have been verified by the board. So public comment has not been verified. So you cannot use public comment in decision making.
That's an interesting interpretation. I don't see that in there.
I'm reading it directly from the Nursing Practice Act. It says complaints that have been verified
by the board. We're reading the same thing. If somebody brings a complaint to us, whether it's in public comment or otherwise, somebody's brought a complaint to us. It sounds like you're suggesting we should take the time to verify that complaint. You're not suggesting that we would dismiss a complaint that was brought forth to us. What you started with, and I'll take a moment to make my comment, if you don't mind. I had a couple things.
Okay.
What stood out to me, quite frankly, when Mr. Lee started his comment, a bit shocking to me, frankly, was bringing up this email, which I had no knowledge of. This was first I had heard of it, but seeking to kind of cast that in some light of being inappropriate or dismissing the other colleges' right and their ability to organize some kind of public comment here. I presume Mr. Lee has said that we're going to hear from students and facilities. I presume that American Career College has had some hand in organizing that discussion, and to say that the colleges who have organized to speak up against this are somehow doing something inappropriate, that really shocked me. They have every right to bring forth their comments to us. How else are we to know what is occurring out in the community? It's important for us to regulate the factors that were listed in that statute, which, as Lori mentioned, did not exclude clinical displacement. Clinical displacement is identified in our regulations as an important factor that the board needs to regulate. And what I wanted to draw attention to, Lori did a good job speaking on the statute. The comments from Mr. Lee were a little bit dismissive, in my opinion. I hope I didn't mishear, but what I was hearing was a little bit dismissive of clinical displacement. He said, we've got the placements for our students, and I don't know what's going on with placement at other schools, and that's kind of how I heard it. So I wanted to bring attention to a Court of Appeal opinion. I would presume, I would hope that the administrators at American Career College are familiar with this decision, given that it was rendered against their sister school, West Coast University. I hope I'm not misstating that there is some relationship between the universities. That is my understanding only, but this case was between West Coast University and the BRN. West Coast University, as board members know, had decided over previous years to make some unilateral enrollment increases without seeking board approval. They challenged the board's ability to regulate enrollment increases every way they could, and they lost at the trial court, and they appealed it to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal also weighed in favor of the Board of Registered Nursing, rejected West Coast University's arguments that the board cannot regulate enrollment numbers, and the Court of Appeal expanded on the board's interest in regulating clinical displacement. I'll read some of it here briefly. I mean, there's so much from this opinion that I could draw attention to, but in the interest of time, quote, requiring nursing programs to obtain board approval before significantly increasing class enrollment helps the board limit this displacement and ensure sufficient clinical opportunities for students. And elsewhere, it talks about not only the students of the university seeking the enrollment increase, but other universities. So we have a very strong interest in hearing from others, other representatives of other schools that may be impacted, and this board ought to consider all sides. So with that, I'll turn it over to our board president to see where you want to go with the discussion.
Thank you, Reza, and thank you, Lori. Is there any comment from the board?
I have a question for Lori before we comment. And I apologize if I'm putting you on the spot, Lori, but one of the concerns yesterday before we closed was a bias to increase enrollment at public schools compared to private schools. And I didn't take notes on it. Would you be willing to remind us of our history over the last few years in terms of the percentages of private schools versus public schools that we have approved enrollment increases on?
Yes, absolutely. So when I took this role and started to kind of pull data together, because I realized when I went through the California State Audit review process that data was really imperative. And they urged us to make enrollment decisions based on data to kind of track that and look at that. So I started pulling the data together. I was doing 2019 forward, but our board vice president asked us to do 5 years. And so I gathered additional data and pulled it 2018 forward, sorry. So in our board materials and our education licensing committee meeting materials, this last year, I've been putting in enrollment increase information that to kind of tell everybody what the board is doing and what the board has been doing. Part of that data was to look at any disproportion, look at regional effects, et cetera. And so we do on our board website delineate between private universities and colleges and public universities and colleges. That is information that the students need to be aware of. And so that is also included in that. So in 2018, 77% of the enrollment increases granted by the board went to private universities and colleges. 23% went to public school settings. In 2019, 93% of all the enrollment increases went to private schools, and only 7% went to public schools. In 2020, the board approved enrollment increases, even during COVID, when there were laws put into place that said they couldn't get clinicals and we had to decrease our education requirements. Yet we still had enrollment increases that year. 94% of them went to private schools and 6% went to public colleges. And then in 21 and 22, which has been the height of growth for all enrollment increases historically throughout the board, in 2021, 93% of the 1,400 enrollment increased student access to schools, for enrollment increases, 93% of those went to private colleges and university, and only 4%, 56 of that greater than 1,400 that were approved, only 56 slots went to public colleges and universities. And just the last year in 2022, 83% went to private institutions and 17% went to public institutions. If you look at that cumulatively, in the last 5 years, 88% of all enrollment increases went to private colleges and universities, and only 12% went to our community colleges. What was mentioned here today by the program was that if students can get into community colleges, they should. Students can't get into community college because the board is not approving enrollment increases for community colleges. Students can't get into community colleges because the community colleges aren't coming forward asking for enrollment increases because they're getting pushed out of clinical sites. So that's really where this becomes kind of that greater discussion. And I know that I have been cautioned against that private versus public conversation, but there truly is such a great effect on that. You know, when they talk about that trickle down effect, you know, these private colleges are serving a need. They absolutely are. But that's because the need is not being met elsewhere, right? So it's not that private universities and colleges are bad at all. It's that we need to look at the root cause of all of this stuff and then address that. So thank you.
Thank you, Lori. I'll reserve any other comment until I hear from the public. I'd like to hear from the public.
Any other comments or questions from the board?
No, same for me. I really want to hear from the public.
Okay. Would you like a motion to go out before opening to public comment? Or would you like public comment first?
This is Reza. I think fair question. You probably are going to hear a lot from people the school have lined up to speak and the other colleges that were interested in apparently speaking on this, which could influence the motion that's ultimately made. So,
yeah.
But of course, you certainly could make a motion now and do with it what you want afterwards.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'm going to make a motion. My motion is not to approve substantial changes to an approved program, American Career College Associate Degree Nursing Program, enrollment increase.
Jovita seconds.
Thank you, Jovita. We can open it up for public comment.
We will be opening for public comment now. I will be activating the question and answer feature. Please refer to the screen share for members of the public to see how they should type in their request for comment. I've activated the question and answer feature. Members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by typing into the question box, "I would like to make a comment." Please remember you will have 2 minutes to make your comments. I will not give a reminder as your time approaches. I do not want to interrupt you nor cause you to lose your train of thought. I will mute your microphone and inform you that your time has expired, and we'll move on to the next member of the public. I'll pause for a moment for members of the public to type in, "I would like to make a comment." Okay, and just as a reminder, you only have to submit once. I will get to you. You do not have to do multiple requests. Ricardo Flores would like to make a comment. 1 second, please. Also, if you are not able to unmute, we won't skip you. We will come back to you. We will circle back around to you. And okay, 1 second.
Hello, good morning. My name is Ricardo Flores, and I am a licensed vocational nursing student at American Career College in the Los Angeles campus. I'm speaking today to urge you to approve the request to increase enrollments for the Associate's Degree in Nursing program, so I myself and my peers will have an opportunity to continue our education to achieving our dreams of becoming registered nurses. Ever since I was little, I've always wanted to be a nurse. I remember my earliest memories are with my mom going to her job at UCLA as she was a certified nursing assistant. Today, my 2 younger sisters are actually licensed vocational nurses. However, after high school, I chose to start my career in the construction industry. I worked in the oil fields, I did electrical work, and I moved to Hawaii where I worked construction there as well. My daughter was born, and as she grew older, I knew I had to make some life changes, and that's when I moved back to California. My two younger sisters encouraged me to start my education. My baby sister just graduated from American Career College October 2022, and she recommended that I apply. To be honest, I'm actually glad I enrolled because ACC has given me flexibility, allowing me to work and care for my daughter. Today, I'm a student ambassador and tutor and mentor the students. You never know what other people are going through, and this role allowed me to help my peers understand that they are always supported. I am thriving in my clinical rotations on weekends. They have exposed me to so many different opportunities. The faculty and staff members at our site are very, very hands on with our learning. I actually worked very closely with a wound care nurse that has provided me mentoring and has encouraged me to learn about this specialty. And because of him, I found my calling. This is what I want to do. I want to be a wound care nurse and or work in the ER. I graduate in September, and I know that once I begin my career, I plan on pursuing my ADN. But access to high quality programs that support working parents is limited. This is why I urge you to please support this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Armando Bolanos would like to make a comment. 1 second, please.
Student and the associate degree nursing program at the LA campus. Uh, I wanted to go ahead and share that for myself here at American Career College, I am the youngest of 5 from my mother, and I am going to be the first to graduate from a college. My journey here began actually with the HiSET program at American Career College, and then I enrolled into the LVN. I graduated in March of 2018 with honor roll, perfect attendance, and as my class ambassador. I then went onto the field working in various units, subacute and SNFs being for primary. I gathered experience, and I returned here to the ADN in 2021. The reason why I came here to American Career College back here was I did consider the community college. I had achieved some prereqs, and then I was bombarded with lotteries, things that made it seem that I cannot get in right away. I ended up then looking around for different schedules that could suit my family needs as well. And when coming back to American Career College, I was offered a schedule that actually worked with it. During COVID, a lot of programs shut down. One of my picks was actually shut down as well. While the community college is closed, I was able to enroll here at the ADN. I know that I have seen my peers in the community as well have to hold off their career expansion, trying to grow as a nurse. And I have recommended here, and all 5 have been able to come here as well. It offers opportunity like no other. It offers flexibility. And I know that I have been trained here adequately, receiving my faculty being specialists in their field, for example, mental health being mental health. I'm able to receive a great amount of education, and not only that, hands-on experience in regards to clinical sites and being able to have the exposure. Myself, I want to go into certain specialties such as ER and ICU, and I receive faculty that have the experience that I'm looking for, and I can grow myself. And even now that as a student, I'm networking in these clinical sites. I'm networking with everybody that I'm meeting. They offer incredible opportunity, and I can only express my gratitude for having come back. I didn't think when I first stepped into this school that I'd be here throughout my entire education, but time and time again, from my HiSET to my LVN to my ADN, this is where I've been able to accomplish it without delay. And that to me has meant being able to grow for myself and my lifestyle, my family, more than anything, for my mother. I've been able to make a tremendous difference in being able to expand my education. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Steckler would like to make a comment. 1 second, please.
My name is Mary Steckler. I am the Associate Dean of Health Sciences and the Director of Nursing at Santa Ana College. And I want to thank you for allowing me to speak again today. I'd like to address a comment that was made during the first day of the two-day meeting regarding biases. I feel I heard the caller say that there are biases being displayed against the private institutions. And Lori Melby shared the data on approved increased enrollments by the board over the last 5 years. If you look at that data, over 85% or more of the increased enrollment requests were for private institutions, and they were approved. So when discussing biases, I feel there has been biases displayed over the last 5 years. That's true. However, those biases are not coming from the Board of Registered Nursing. In fact, the board has graciously answered most requests from the private institutions in support of the need for the nursing workforce identified by the clinical facilities. The bias, in my opinion, is coming from the clinical facilities. The bias is clearly displayed in the increased partnerships between the private institutions and the clinical facilities. The CEOs and the COOs in the meeting are saying they have clinical capacity to increase the pipeline for nursing. Yet when the community colleges ask for their full cohort of students to attend a clinical site, the answer is no. In fact, cut them in half. We don't have the clinical capacity to accommodate your full cohort now. Yet they say they have clinical capacity to support these private institution requests for increased enrollment. Is this not a display of bias? There are comments about the clinical facilities wanting to have a culturally diverse nursing workforce. I believe it was mentioned that this is exactly what these institutions are providing. This may be true, but look at the facts. Community colleges, at least I can speak for Santa Ana, we receive over 600 applications for prospective students twice a year. Over 600 twice a year. However, we can only enroll 60 in the fall and 40 in the spring due to the lack of clinical sites. The hospitals report they are impacted with students. So you think about it, where do those 500 to 1,000 prospective students turn to? Some will go deeply into debt to enroll in a private institution to get their training completed. So here's my question. Why aren't the clinical facilities partnering with the ADN programs? We could create the largest pipeline ever. In fact, we have in the past. It was proven. I don't know if you remember the HRSA grant back in 2013 or whenever it was. We did have enrollment growth. It was wonderful. All the colleges were enrolling because we had the support of the clinical facilities. But when the BSN thing came down, boom, cut off. So I'm not even sure if the COOs or the CEOs on this call realize that most community colleges, again, I could speak for Santa Ana, over 95% of our current students that are enrolled in our program are also enrolled in the BSN program, whether that's dual enrollment, concurrent enrollment, collaborative enrollment. The students are working towards 2 degrees, all the while holding some other degree that they came in with. So they only have like a year left and then they get their degree. And finally, I want to invite the CEOs and the CNOs and the COOs or whomever is on this call, and they're vetting the partnership that you want to engage in with private institutions. I ask you one question. Compare the patient care hours that are required of the students by the time of graduation. And then I would ask you or invite you to compare those hours with what the community colleges require of their students to complete. Once you see the discrepancy in hours, you'll see which one is graduating the most competent, safe, and effective nurse. Thank you.
Thank you. Joel Mathis would like to make a comment. 1 second, please.
My name is Joel Mathis, and I'm the Chief Nursing Officer at Doc Surgical Hospital and Surgical Center here in Los Angeles. I'm here to support the approval of the American Career College application, as I can speak personally firsthand to the severe shortage in RNs in our community here locally and at our hospital and surgery centers. We have recently partnered with American Career College to help us with hiring quality new grads and hopefully be a clinical site in the future. American Career College is a quality institution and their NCLEX pass rate is quite impressive. We are a small system but growing and cannot compete with the larger hospital systems that surround us like Cedars, Kaiser, and UCLA when it comes to hiring. We need more nurses in our facilities that are in need of a new grad to help fill in those open positions. It has been difficult to fill them, the open positions recently, and we've had to rely more on registry nurses to supplement our staffing. I urge the board to approve this application as we can never have too many nurses in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleen Bauer would like to make a comment. 1 second, please. Go ahead, Colleen.
Good morning to the Board of Registered Nurses, and thank you for allowing me to speak in support of the American Career College and their accepting of the change of enrollment increase of 100 students per year. I am the Chief Nursing Officer at Community Hospital of Huntington Park. We have been in a long-standing relationship with American Career College. We are one of those hospitals that Tim was speaking of, more of a homegrown, Spanish-speaking, underserved community. We do struggle to keep nurses after we train them. So we have the American Career College comes here on a regular basis. They work with the nurses that we have, and in hopes that they come back as new grads. We do hire mainly new grads as we can't compete with the other facilities. The ones that do stay with us are those that are Spanish speaking, who live nearby, and that's basically what we need here. Considering we are about 95% Spanish speaking, we don't have all the bells and whistles. And we truly appreciate American Career College for the nurses that they bring in and the opportunity for us to onboard the new grads. So I'm hoping that you'll consider their increase per year, and I appreciate you allowing me to speak today.
Thank you. Bernadette would like to speak. 1 second, please.
My name is Bernadette Morales from Doc Spine Orthopedics Human Resources Department. I am here to support the approval of American Career College application to increase the students for the nursing program. As Joel stated, we are in the same company and we've experienced firsthand nursing shortages and the difficulties that we're facing pre and post COVID to fill these positions. Earlier in the discussion, we talked about the correlation between open positions at 4,400 open availability for jobs here in Los Angeles and not enough nursing students. So I do approve of American Career College to boost their students from, I think, 30 to 50 is what they're trying to apply for. And we are in support. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Roger Ortiz would like to make a comment. 1 second, please.
Thank you for taking my comments. I made a couple of comments yesterday, and Dolores, one of the questions you asked was, what is your outcomes on placement? And I think that there's a lot of fuzzy numbers going on, and the board should do this and research Sweet versus Cordona, which basically names this school in particular out of any that you're going to consider today as misleading its students. And I think that, you know, how do you make up numbers on placements? I mean, you have community colleges that are begging you to please consider the impact that it'll have on them. And I understand students have been rallied up and they're going to come speak to you. And as a community college student, as a UCLA graduate, as a San Diego State graduate student, I know the struggles, but I can tell you that listen to the community college students that are going to be displaced. Listen to the ones that it's not prime time hours that they're fighting over. I mean, these community college students will take anything that's given to them. And so look at the numbers that Lori gave you for the last 5 years. You know, Google Suite versus Cardona, it's this school, and then make your decision. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Andrew, John would like to make a call. 1 second, please.
Adventist Health, nonprofit community health system serving California and the West Coast. My comment is actually a question for Lori on the statistics on program size. Could you provide us with the inverse, meaning the number of increased slots that this board has denied for community colleges? You provided us with the percentage of slots that this board has approved, comparing and contrasting the two. Could you tell us how many slots you've denied?
I can actually. I won't have a percentage, but I can give you the specific information. In 2018, the board denied an enrollment increase for Western Governors University. That is the only enrollment increase that the board has denied until yesterday in the last 5 years. Western Governors University is a private, not-for-profit university, and that enrollment was a request to increase their enrollment by 30 placement slots, and that was denied. During that same year, the board had a request for 2 more enrollment growths by private institutions. That was Cal Baptist University and American Career College University. Those enrollment requests were deferred, which means the board did not take any action on them. And they asked for them to come back later. And when they did come back later, Cal Baptist was approved for the enrollment increase that they requested. And when American Career College came back, they were approved for the enrollment increase that they requested, but additionally approved for another enrollment number higher than what they originally asked for. Those are the ones in the past years that have been denied by our board. Now, I will clarify that in 2021, our board did approve some enrollment increases. One was for Concordia and one was for Stanbridge, again, both private university and colleges where they approved their enrollment increase, but they approved it at a lesser number. So Concordia asked for an increase of 64 students. The board approved them for 24 students and asked them to come back in a year. The Stanbridge University request was for 40 students 4 times a year, and the board approved them for 30 students 4 times a year. There was no denial of community colleges that came in front of our board. And I'm sure that you can see by the numbers that I reported out yesterday and stuff, it's because they're not able to come forth and request the enrollment increases because they're struggling currently to find clinical placements and faculty to support, because as our public member reported in here, that those clinical placements are being managed through healthcare facilities and not necessarily through the academic institutions, and healthcare facilities are not under the jurisdiction of boards, of our Board of Registered Nursing, and they can make the choices that they choose to make, and it is affecting our community colleges as well as our private colleges. Did I answer your question?
That's extremely helpful. What I gathered from that is 2 things. One, this board has not denied any requests to community or state colleges for increased enrollment, and this board has a opinion that those requests have not come through because of clinical rotation capacity.
That is what is told us in our school reports, as well as our workforce reports that are completed through UCSF. That does that study for it. So it's not an opinion, it is factual information that is gathered from all of the schools annually. We have a 100% participation rate for all of our schools, and they participate this on an annual basis, both our public and our private institutions. And they do let us know as part of that report that is then validated and is shared on our website by researchers separate from the board, that a lot of the issues for the enrollment or lack of enrollment growth is due to clinical displacement. And as our board legal counsel shared as well, that was also held up in a court of law. So it is not a board opinion.
Yeah. As a statewide health system that has in-depth partnerships with community colleges and state colleges from Los Angeles to Ukiah to Mendocino County, that's helpful information. I'm going to reserve the rest of my comments for items later on in the agenda, but thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, and we really appreciate your participation in this. Getting all this public comment and different points of view is exactly what our board needs to make these decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Alice Martin Legara. Yes.
Sorry, this is Reza. I thought I might make a comment that maybe might help those who have yet to make their comments. Some of the comments so far have talked about, we need nurses, particularly the comments from facility representatives and things like that. I think it may have been the school representative himself who, in the first place, brought up the statute, Business Professions Code 2786.2, and the limitations on this board when it considers enrollment increases. And we talked specifically about the board shall not consider nursing workforce issues. So it's a little bit, touchy when we talk about, of course, the commenters are free to make any comment they want, but ultimately, I think with American Career College, you make your own decision. But I think the big issue is displacement. And so, a lot of the comments from, students and the facilities have been extremely helpful and valuable, but don't really speak to displacement. And to the extent that the comments are about, needs for nurses and all that kind of starts to fall into this issue about prohibition on consideration of workforce issues. So I just wanted to put that out there in case those who have yet to make comment want to kind of speak on displacement or alter their comments anyway. Not that they have to.
Process question, Reza, will the school be allowed to speak one more time before we close off?
I think that's up to the board, probably ultimately the board president, but there's no reason that they couldn't.
Okay, thank you.
Alice Martin Legara would like to make a comment. 1 second, please.
Alice Matanagara. I'm representing Golden West College. It's a community college. Earlier, listening to the hearing, we understand about the workforce needs that clinical facilities are addressing and the shortage of nurses. And, we're experiencing the same thing here in our region. But, to address the gentleman who representing the school in regards to placing students who did not, who are qualified but did not receive admission seats in a community college. And so their purpose is to help serve some of those community college students who couldn't get seats. Then my question is, why charge 90% greater price or cost of tuition when you say a registered nurse who comes out of nursing school will make $87,000, yet your tuition is almost equivalent? So how do you survive and live in Los Angeles area and still be able to pay rent and food when you have to pay back your student loan? So that's my question, and I ask or implore upon you to please consider that if you are indeed in the purpose of helping serve the community college students who couldn't get seats, to then be reasonable and really produce that registered nurse. But at the same time, please consider the constituent or the student who eventually has to pay back that student loan.
Thank you. Connie Lafuente would like to make a comment. 1 second, please. Connie, are you able to unmute? I'll come back to Connie. Monique Linebeck would like to make a comment. 1 second, please. If you are on a desktop, you may not have a microphone. I'm going to go back to Connie. 1 second, please. Connie, I'm sending the request for you to unmute. Sorry, if you cannot unmute yourself, go ahead and type your comment into the Q&A and we'll read it. I'll go back to Monique one more time. Okay, again, sorry if you cannot unmute. Go ahead and type your comment into the Q&A and we'll read it.
Reza, while we're waiting for the mutes to work, we did have a public comment submitted to our NEC from one of our students. I don't know if that will be able to be read.
Yeah, I think, Lori, I think had said she had received some comments and was going to read those. I don't know if you want to wrap in the emailed responses kind of all at one time.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know that. Thank you.
That's okay.
Angie Vogel would like to make a comment. 1 second, please.
I'm just counting. It looks like there's only a handful of commenters in the chat left who've requested. And a couple of them are the ones we're trying to work out.
Angie, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm unmuted. Okay, thank you very much. My name is Angela Vogel. I am the Assistant Department Administrator and Faculty at San Bernardino Valley College in San Bernardino. Thank you very much for allowing me to make a comment. I wanted to speak on a few things that have been said. Number one, clinical placement is very difficult. We are a community college. We have been longstanding in our community. Our students now are traveling much further than they ever have in the past in order to secure the placement that we have gotten. We have students traveling 40 to 50 miles one way to be able to get to a clinical site. We also are not Monday through Thursday, 8 to 2. We are having night shifts. We are having alternative locations other than hospitals to be able to get the clinical experiences the students have. And I feel one of the big reasons for this is because in the San Bernardino area, we have West Coast College as well as ACC now. And an expansion of these type of programs is a direct competition for us for clinical sites. So in the past, yes, we had a storybook romance, I guess you can say, with our county hospitals and always got placements. This last year, we have lost our critical care placements at these facilities and have had to look for other facilities to expand upon, as well as everyone knows, specialty placements in pediatrics, OBGYN, and mental health are very difficult to obtain as well. So I did want to speak from that perspective, saying that the community college student, number one, is not a 4.0 sparkling student. These are also, obviously, we are in San Bernardino. Our demographic is not a 4.0 sparkling student. Our students do struggle academically, as well as they are very diverse, and we want to make sure that the equity and inclusion for our students is represented by the Board of Registered Nursing and supported as well. Thank you.
Hey, Reza, really quick, Angie, please reach out to me. I'm actually a graduate of San Bernardino Valley College and would like to help support your program and help replace some of those clinical sites. I believe in your program. I know the community. I'm born and raised down the street from your school. So whatever I could do to help you get some of those clinical sites back, I do know those students very well. Unfortunately, the Inland Empire, there's a lot of travel out there, but if we could help you out, I'm all about forming partnerships versus adversarial relationships. So if you, I'll figure out a way to reach out to you or reach out to me. I'd be willing to help you out and share any excess clinical sites we may have and partner with you. So I believe in your program. I believe in what you do. I know how difficult it is. I've had family members try to get into the program, but would be glad to partner with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Can we continue with public comment, please?
Brenda Chan would like to make a comment. 1 second, please.
Good morning. My name is Brenda Chan. I'm the nursing program director at East Los Angeles College. I do have concern about ACC's enrollment increase because currently we have the same DHS facility. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Board President Trujillo, can you see the typed in comment?
I can.
Did you want to read that? You want me to read that?
I would like you, just because my voice.
Okay, no problem. Okay, this is from Monique Linebeck. Hello, as a clinical placement coordinator, having navigated recent changes through the consortium and efforts made to streamline placements, there is a growing disparity between available clinical placements for the number of registered nursing students. This causes a domino effect of patient and safety outcomes. I am concerned for the quality of leadership and training and ask that the board consider the position of our nurses who are also carrying the weight of the pandemic in training new nurses too. Representing the San Diego Imperial Community Colleges in regards to
hang on, Mark. Sorry.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. That's Connie.
Yeah, you spilled over into the next.
Sorry. Okay. I'm sorry. Monica Linebeck. Again, I'm sorry. There's a level of fatigue. Monique Linebeck. There's a level of fatigue based on the human level, and there's a scarcity of resources. We all want more nurses and nurses who are trained in safe and effective care that are equipped to provide best care and address cogwheel-like challenges. In short, and that's all I have for Monique Linebeck. Connie LaFuente.
She may have run out of room.
She's been making several comments.
Yeah, several comments, yes. Connie LaFuente's comment is representing the San Diego Imperial Community Colleges in regards to clinical displacements. Clinical displacement are real and are hurting our students. This past semester, a health facility that we have had 15 years relationship pulled the clinical placements 2 weeks prior starting their placements due to giving those rotations to a private college. Our students are at risk of not completing the program. Thank you, and please support our community colleges. And Monique just said, and Monique Linebeck's last comment is, thank you, sorry for my audio challenges. And Board President Trujillo, that is, there are no other requests for public comment. Would you like me to close this window?
Yes, thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. We can take it to a vote.
President Trujillo, go ahead.
This is Betty.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Do we have
Sorry,
questions?
if I may. I think there were some emailed.
That's right.
For a few more comments, maybe that I don't know if Lori or whoever wants to read them in.
Thank you, Reza.
And then, yeah, any board discussion and then.
Yes, I have that. Thank you, Reza. Let me go ahead and pull them up. I did receive a few, so I just want to make sure that I represent all of them. So give me 1 second here. I opened my email this morning and it was quite a different email than it usually is. Okay, sorry. I did receive an email from a program director that is from a community college. It says, please do not approve another enrollment increase, ! I'm appealing to you as more community college students will be affected. And we already know that Marcia First displaced 20% of my students. I received another public comment request. And this was a letter from Greater El Monte Community College. I believe we might have already heard from them, said they're a chief nursing officer of Greater El Monte Community College. They explained what the community hospital is. They offer a wide range of services, 24/7 emergencies, 6-mile radius. They're speaking today to share the support of the application. And so that one was received. Says schools such as ACC that can be flexible and take rotations on evening, weekends, and summers assist other schools on traditional calendars that do not have this flexibility and allows us to create more opportunities around. Received another one, just got to let it open here real quick. Talks about being an ACC ADN student at the LA campus. Says the name of who they are. They're a former EMT, a current U.S. Army reservist, and an associate degree nursing student at ACC's LA campus. Currently working as an emergency tech at Good Sam Hospital. Taking the opportunity to speak in support for students like himself to achieve the dream of becoming an RN. Talks about more of their background, struggling in high school, GPAs. Goes on, basically then comes down and says, I know that when I graduate, I'll be prepared not only as an RN, but as a patient advocate to speak Spanish, and am often asked by nurses and doctors that work in the ER to assist the patient communication, serving a diverse population. I know I can have a voice for my patients when I'm an RN. I only wish I could speak more language so I could help more. Did say that today I ask you to give other students the opportunity that they have had by allowing ACC to increase their school enrollment. To many of us need this opportunity to achieve our dreams to make the difference at a great school. Another one came through, and it's looks like another student from the ACC campus. Says that they're an LVN student at ACC in LA, speaking to urge the approval of the request for the increased number of associate degree nursing programs so that them and the peers have an opportunity to continue the education and achieve the dreams. Gives, again, background on who this person is. And I believe this one did speak. It did say, I worked in the oil field, did electrical work, moved to Hawaii. So we did hear from this student today. And says they're thriving in their clinical rotations on weekends. They've exposed me to different opportunities, praises the staff and the faculty, and then the wound care. So we did hear this one verbatim in public comment. Says they graduate in September. I know that once I begin my care, I can plan on pursuing my ADN, but access to high quality programs that support working parents is limited. This is why I urge you to support this application. I did receive another email that came from a Stanbridge representative that talks about how rules were not followed yesterday. It says, yesterday we followed the rules you sent in the email below, including the expert following. If other representatives from your program feel they have relevant information to share, if the community is not moving in your favor, please have them follow the direction of the BR moderator during public comment. I would like to make a comment. However, immediately after us, a community college was allowed to direct the moderator to elevate multiple members presenting on their behest, completely disregarding the rules set forth below. Neither the staff, the board, nor the moderator stepped in. In following your directions, we were limited to speaking and commenters with limited time. The bias has been shown against us is discriminatory. I would like to ask for your comments on why this was allowed to happen.
That's an interesting one, Lori.
Yeah.
I do recall the I just vaguely recall somebody representing one of the schools was either on the panel or had been promoted and asked other people to be promoted. And I recall that incident. Typically the board or Lori or somebody will direct our moderator who to promote to the panel and elevate to speak. So that did jump out at me. Probably the best practice for folks who are invited to the panel is to ask our board president or our executive officer to promote somebody, and then they will have our moderator do so. In that case, if you want to know why nobody stepped in, I, for one, didn't feel a need to. I thought we were hearing from the school, and if the school thought we ought to hear from somebody else, then that was nobody from the board having any objection. It seemed the board had an interest in hearing from it. Just like in this current discussion, American Career College has had folks that they, want us to hear from, and that's typically the way it goes. If this school that made this comment feels aggrieved somehow, I wish they would have brought this to our attention some other way, because it's not our intention to limit the comments that the school is bringing. Generally, we limit actual public comment to 2 minutes, because otherwise our meetings just become unwieldy and all that. But yeah, I think there would have been another way to deal with that if the school felt like it got somehow shortchanged or didn't have the opportunity to speak. Now, this is Stanbridge? Is that right?
Yeah, they presented
a private school
enrollment increases yesterday, and both were denied.
Are they private school?
They are a private university.
Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, I have some thoughts on the private school bias. That's Loretta read out statistics that seem to objectively kind of contradict any notion that there's a bias. I can say affirmatively that this board does not have a bias against private schools, doesn't treat them differently except as directed to by statute. The only bias that this board has is against schools that don't play on an even playing field and don't respect the BRN's ability to regulate things that are within our jurisdiction. So they can use the word bias again and again, but the facts seem to disprove it. And that's what I wanted to say on that comment.
Thank you. Additionally, I did receive one last email for work to be read today, and they just from the community college kind of greater coalition said thank you for the support of the meeting yesterday. They've had many directors that have reached out to this person to request us to share the data regarding the disparities in enrollment increases between private and public schools in the meeting again today, if possible. That was actually brought up, and we were able to share that earlier. So I don't think that we need to bring that up again. But if there is a need, I have the data. That's the one thing that I have been doing over the last few years, is collecting a lot of data. So thank you for that. That was all the emails that I've received. I did receive some of those emails directly from the NECs assigned to the schools. And so if that message was sent, I do believe that I was able to get them and accurately represent them here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Any comments from the board?
Can the school speak one last time briefly?
Or let me find out if there's comments from the board first.
Well, I have a comment. I'd almost rather hear from the school and then let the board talk among themselves without the school jumping in.
That's fine.
Thank you, Tricia. Just a couple of things. You know, as we're speaking, I do want to talk to Alice, the program director, that asked about tuition. You know, Alice, I don't know if you remember, we're former colleagues, but, you know, as a private institution, we don't have any state funds. And as you're very well, it's very expensive to run a nursing program because nursing wages are very high. Sim labs, nursing labs are very expensive. So if you look at it, we are probably the cheapest ADN private school out there. And we're relatively priced to any other tuition at private colleges. One thing we did last year is we did partner with HRSA and got a grant for 20 of our students, as well as the Los Angeles EDD with additional grants. And 20 of our students actually went to school for entirely free. So if you look at the average tuition cost across all students, it's probably cheaper. But I do understand your concerns, but there are no tax dollar subsidies or state subsidies that help us with our program. It's all tuition driven. The other thing to point out, I do want to point out one last time to the board that we have submitted in attachment 10 in our executive summary, objective data that there's no clinical displacements. We submitted EDP 18 forms that were approved from approved facilities that there's no clinical displacement. If the board is still wary about our ask of going from 5 of 30 to 5 of 50, we'd be willing to ask, is there an acceptable amount? Is it 5 of 40? And then you come back and you look at our outcomes in a year or two and see how NCLEX is doing, as retention is doing. If we're able to support those students, maybe we talk about an additional increase at that time. My concerns is serving the constituents, our students in our communities, our hospitals in our communities. And we'll also like to state, we also submitted with our submission 4 letters of support from Assembly members Norris, Pacheco, Rubio, and Santiago, all expressing their support of the growth of our program because they understand the value and what it brings to the constituents of the city of Los Angeles. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Go ahead, Tricia.
Thanks very much, Dolores, and nice to see you this morning. You know, I was appointed to this board 14 months ago, and we have been grappling with this issue ever since. We definitely see the disparities between what's happening at public and private institutions. And I think after the public testimony today, I'm more concerned than ever when we see these medical facilities during public comment talk about how they have a pipeline from these private universities directly into their facilities, really to the disadvantage of neighboring community colleges. So, and I also am concerned that 100 new students a year into this, you know, very busy LA County is too many. So for that reason, I will be supporting the motion today.
I'd like to make a comment. And I agree. I mean, the pipeline that you can tell is between American Career College and these facilities is real, and the extent to which it's displacing community college students is a big deal. But I'm afraid that what we're facing here is a systemic problem that is bigger than just community colleges not being able to expand because of displacement. We know that community colleges have not been able to expand, and frankly, most of the ones that are not performing at the level that we want them, the 75% NCLEX pass rate, is because they can't hire faculty because they're not paid enough at the community college to have the faculty. So I'm afraid that if we say that from now on, we're really going to, decrease the number of enrollment increases that we have for private colleges because of their ability to create this pipeline is still not going to fix the problem. for the people of California, because hospitals desperately need nurses right now, more than we have ever needed nurses. At my hospital alone, a children's hospital at just over 500 beds, we spent $10 million in February on traveling nurses. We have never spent that much money, and our own staff are getting over $1 million a month in incentive to work extra shifts. Some perhaps working so many shifts that it's not safe for them to even work that many. So we have a real problem of a nursing shortage in California. I agree. I'd love to do something to support the community colleges to expand, but I am nervous that if we start saying we can't expand the private schools, we're going to end up with a worse nursing shortage in California than we have right now, and we won't be serving the public well.
Hi, this
Thank
is
you.
Betty. It's perplexing, the whole thing, because how do we increase nurses by decreasing nurses in nursing schools? It just doesn't fall together. I guess I would be more apt to look at this if it wasn't, I think it's 100 slots that they want to increase. And perhaps we can lower that number. But I'm concerned also, we have to have nurses be educated somewhere. How many things can we close and still have enough nurses that are educated? So, and I'm concerned about private colleges and their connection to the various healthcare facilities. So, you see, I'm on the fence about this. I'm trying to look at it in several ways, but I'm probably be better with it if it wasn't that number. Or how did 100 or whatever the number is? I think it's 100 when we look at it. Where did it come from? How does that determine that it was 100 and not 50? And why?
Is that a question of the school?
I guess that you are the ones that are going to have to answer it because we don't have the.
Thank you, Ms. Woods. The reason we look at it is we could support that demand without any problem. We have that many applicants. Also, it's based on how we'll do staffing. If 20 students extra ends up being like another full-time faculty. That's why I requested if we need to moderate and reduce that request, Ms. Woods, we could do it to 40. That allows me to do a part-time faculty to support those 10 students. But increments of 10 based on the way clinical ratios work are probably a safe number. Some, are 10, some are 8, but that allows us for even staffing numbers. That's why the number 20 was out there. So if 20, Ms. Woods scares you, like I said, we'd be willing to cut that back to 10 per cohort. And then again, assess our outcomes. I think, I don't think the winners and losers or the approvals and denials should be chosen based on public or private or whatever it is. It should be based on student outcomes. And again, I stand by our student outcomes. I will put our student outcomes up against any program in the state, BSN or ADN.
I guess while you're on the phone there, I have another question. Your tuition is quite high, and yet you seem to have a lot of students from communities that are not that well off.
Well, Elizabeth, most of our students are eligible for Pell Grants or Cal Grants. So they do get federal subsidies through federal financial aid system. There's also student loans. And like I said in the last comment, we partnered with HRSA, got grants for a lot of our students, as well as the LA County EDD to get incumbent worker training grants. So we work with our students. But one of the things I want to point out to the board is we keep looking at tuition cost as the only cost. Our program, a student can enter the program and be done and become an RN in 20 months. The community colleges, great programs, they may be free, but a student must take all of their general education courses before they even apply to the nursing program. So it takes 2 to 3 years to get those general education courses done. And then you're looking at another 2-year program to become an RN. So where it takes our students 20 months to become an RN, it'll take a student at the community college 5 years. And that's if they even get in. And like I said, our starting salary for our graduates last year was $87,000. So they're making 3 years of at least $87,000 a year while the community college students are still in school. So rather than just looking at tuition, we also have to look at opportunity cost. And those 3 years without income is a huge opportunity cost.
Just let me ask you one other thing. They're doing their general ed while they're there also, aren't they?
Our general ed courses are built into the program. So our general courses, it's 20 months with no transfer credits. You could not have any nursing prerequisites, anything. You come into our program day one, you're done in 20 months. And again, our on-time completion rate, 96%, our NCLEX pass rate over the last 4 years in the 90s. The current year NCLEX pass rate is at 98% for the first 3 quarters. And our outcoming cohort has actually performed better than the previous cohort. So we're expecting to maintain an incredibly high NCLEX pass rate this year.
Thank you for that information. I don't have any other comments.
This is Lori, and I'd like to make some comments really quick. But David, sounded like you were starting to speak, so I'll let you go first.
Thank you. Originally I was going to bypass any comment on the business model that's being used because you all have addressed it. But since he just mentioned the 20-month time frame to get through, that actually does apply to my main comment, which has to do with the impact. And like Betty said, the concern of 100 students, because what that sounds to me like is more of a business model that in my industry we call a diploma mill, where you can buy your degree at a private institution. However, one of the speakers talked about patient care hours and clinical placement and the idea of displacement. And however many students you are able to push through on your assembly line, the idea of student outcomes being important is only one part of it. For me, it's patient care outcomes, and my concern is for the patient. And the kind of clinical hours done in a simulation lab with a qualified, hopefully, person in charge of that clinical time concerns me compared to actual clinical hours with real life patients and the patient care hours completed by them. So the impact of 100 students, if we were General Motors or if we were Verizon, that would make more sense. But we're talking about the sacred work of nurses and working on human beings. And so that's where my concern for those outcomes matter.
Well, David, thank you for bringing up comparing us to a assembly line's a little offensive, but as you heard from our students in the hospitals, our students have great bedside care. Most of our students are LVNs. So where a lot of nurses coming out are new grads, a lot of our students already have experience as LVN and have bedside patient care. So they are excellent nurses and they're working their way up the nursing ladder. As far as clinical hours, we meet and surpass the board minimum. We have 840 clinical hours, 630 of them are direct patient care. So our program is phenomenal. And again, we talk about displacement. We have supplied the board with objective, clear data that we have enough clinical sites that meet the board criteria, and those sites state that there are no displacement of any other schools. And here's what else. If there's a school, we had somebody from East LA if ACC displaces a community college from any hospital, give me a call, we will move. I will not displace a community college. If there's an issue, give me a call. I'll give you my cell number today if you want it. We will move. I do not want to displace a community college. They serve a very critical need in our community. But guess what? So do we.
I'm not saying you don't. However, pushing 50 students 5 times a year through one program and doing it with part-time adjunct faculty might provide not as high quality care outcomes for a patient than another institution.
Well, thank you, David. We did support. We have a lot of full-time faculty as well, but if you understand nursing education, most clinical faculty are part-time, just because the way rotations work. But we have full-time and part-time faculty throughout the program.
I want to take this opportunity just to kind of remind our board and remind the people in public comment that although we are considering enrollment increases today, those enrollment increases affect the next enrollment cycle. That next enrollment cycle could be, in the fall, could be the summer. It could just be in about 10 weeks. Some of our programs rotate on an every 10-week basis. Those enrollment increases still have to go through the process of attending school and graduating. So when we're hearing from our employers, we're hearing from the nursing workforce issues that Reza did point out that we're not supposed to take into consideration. One of the issues that I really want to make sure that our board is aware of is that these enrollment increases will not hit the workforce for 2 more years. It will not hit the workforce for 3 more years if we're looking at accelerated BSN programs, which is what the earlier school that was denied yesterday was. So although we hear the outcry and that there is a huge need for nurses right now today, and you're sharing the statistics that talk about 4,000 positions open and all of this stuff that's needing to be addressed, I want to make sure that the public knows and our board knows that you guys have done an amazing job as addressing that already, and that you guys are continuing to make these really difficult decisions and are continuing to address that. Understand that the 1,400 enrollment increases you guys approved 2 years ago are going to hit the workforce today, that those are going to start graduating from those 20-month programs, those 2-year programs. We will have students right now today answering that call and that need for workforce. Additionally, those 3-year programs that were part of that 1,400 student enrollment increase that was approved in 2021, those will be hitting the workforce in this next year. So help is on the way. Please understand that help is on the way. We've heard you, our board heard you, and they're doing everything to really address that call to action. Additionally, last year, the board approved another additional about 1,200 students. Those students will be coming too. Give them a year. Those 20-month students will be hitting out when those 3-year students were hitting out into the workforce in a year, like we talked about the ones from 2021. And then the ones that are in those 3 years will then continue to follow. That pipeline of nursing has been addressed. It has been secured, and it has been really something that collaboratively, private and public universities and colleges have worked diligently to address. Our board has received that, has seen that, and has approved every single request coming in. So the workforce struggles that are happening today are being addressed by our board with those enrollment increases that have happened over the last 5 years. Our board has approved, again, more enrollment growth than they've ever had in the past, and they're continuing to approve enrollment growth. The idea that we're prioritizing public over private, I don't know that that stands with the data. I know that that's called out in discussion here. I know that that's a consideration that our board has taken in. But it's not shown in data that even though those discussions are out there, that they're changing the way that our board votes on these enrollment increases. A lot of times just getting the message out is where the seeds are planted. What needs to happen is at a state level, more funding needs to go to these public universities and public colleges in order to support growth. More higher faculty wages are being talked about. And there was legislation that was passed in Washington State in 2018 that shows it had an immense effect, and their community colleges are now growing where they hadn't grown in the past. So a lot of times our board members are bringing up these issues, not to say that it's affecting their enrollment decisions, but to say that this is an area that still needs further attention, that our board is aware of this, and that our board is concerned with it. But I hope that you understand that even though our board members are very astute, they have shared these insights because they are truly affecting nursing practice, patient safety, hospital staffing, travel nurses. American Hospital Association, I believe, asked for a national law to cap salaries of travel nurses because they were capitalizing on the pandemic and forcing healthcare institutions to pay astronomical wages for temporary staff. That's an issue. That's not an issue that's able to be fixed through these enrollment increases today. As was said here, that's a systemic issue that's much bigger than our board. But our board is very, very keen and able to point out these issues. Mary Fagan accurately shared the impact at our hospitals, the ton of money that was spent on traveling nurses, and that cannot continue. Just because these things are stated in our board meetings so that that word gets out, so that the public is aware of the issues that are facing the nurse force, does not mean it changes or affects the enrollment decisions. So I want to make sure that people understand that. If you look at our data and you continue to look at our data, I am positive that you will be able to see that there is not a disparity where what is being said today, where it says that private institutions are being pushed out in approval of public institutions. The data shows otherwise. Always look for the data. I know the initial gut response. I know the motion behind it when people are told no and they're used to being told yes. I know that people go to the legislators all the time to get support, to rally support, to change laws. Please continue to do that. The only reason we're here is because legislators have voted us in to stay. And so please continue to do that. I'm glad that they're attending our meetings. I'm glad that they're hearing this. And I'm glad that these channels are open for conversation, because that's really where the magic happens. And so thank you guys very much for putting this out there, starting these difficult conversations, getting this moving in the right direction. And I hope that you guys are able to see that the data does not support the claims that private institutions are being pushed out in favor of public institutions. I know that that's what it seems, but that is not the reality of what the data supports. Thank you.
EO Melby, thank you for the enrollment increases that have happened. But as stated yesterday, even in the SPED study, speaking of data, we're not going to reach parity in nursing staffing until 2037. That's even with the new increases. We talked about the turnover rate yesterday, with 17 to 30% of nurses leaving the field every year, and 56% of nurses are leaving the field within 2 years. 44% of nurses leaving the field are citing stress and being overworked because of staffing shortages as the reason they're leaving the field. So we're looking at parity at 2037 without another pandemic, without another issue. We are not keeping pace with the need of nurses, with the jobs or the applicant pool right now. Again, once we get to parity and there's enough staffing, then we can look to adjust. The board has that power. Again, yesterday, West Hills was approved for 80 students. They were in Orange County. We've even adjusted ours to go down to 50. So the only thing I ask this board is if our answer is no to our application today, what objective data was used to give a West Hills a yes versus American Career College a no?
I would make a motion that we approve half of the positions that they're asking for.
We have a motion on the floor already, Betty.
There's a motion on the floor. We do have to take a vote on that motion. If that motion fails, then another motion can be made.
Okay. Read the motion again before we vote on it, please.
The motion on the floor is to deny the request for the substantive change for American Career College's enrollment increase.
Vicki, did you have a comment?
I would like at some point to have a discussion about the public comment and how the public comment is handled. because it's 11 o'clock, we've done one item, and I've sat on other boards where people who get elevated get handled in some different kinds of ways. And so I realize that I'm probably bringing up something that's different about how you've always done things. But I find allowing a speaker to just speak at will and not have the ability to call on him or call on them to be problematic and somewhat unfair to other times we've elevated people and they have been more not as willing to be as assertive in doing their jobs. So if we could perhaps have a discussion on, I know the Brown Act a lot better than I know
Bagley Keene.
So I know how we handled it with the Brown Act, but I think if we're going to have meetings like this, then we're going to need to maybe rethink how you've done things in the past, because otherwise we're never going to get through an agenda. But I don't want to talk about it. I'm saying that this is not on the agenda and it's something that could be on a future agenda. But I would like to call this question and vote on this one.
Okay. Thank you, Vicki. And your point is well taken. Okay. Any other comments from the board before we vote? All right. So the motion on the floor is to deny substantive changes to an approved program, American Career College Associate Degree Nursing Program Enrollment Increase. We have a second with Jovita, and now we'll take it to a vote. Dolores Trujillo votes yes. Jovita?
Jovita votes yes.
Patricia Nguyen? Patricia Nguyen?
I'm very sorry. I forgot I was muted. Yes.
Okay. David Lawler?
David, yes.
Vicki Granowitz?
Yes.
Elizabeth Woods?
No. Woods.
Mary Fagan?
No.
Okay. I believe the motion carries, correct?
That's
yes.
Correct. Okay.
Yes, it does.
All right. Thank you. Moving on to the next agenda item.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 8.2.7, discussion and possible action regarding acceptance of a substantive change to an approved nursing program. This is CNI College Baccalaureate Degree Nursing Program, which is requesting an enrollment increase. Their information is in your packet on page 76. And board moderator, if you could please elevate the presenters on the list from CNI. CNI College is in Santa Ana, California. They're requesting an enrollment increase to their BSN program, which was approved in 2021. Their previous program, which was an ADN program, was taught out prior to the, in their transition to BSN. Their current enrollment pattern is 40 students 5 times a year for an annual enrollment of 200 students. They're requesting to add an additional evening and weekend cohort of 24 students 5 times a year. This would be 120 students annually. The combined enrollment in pattern would be 64 students 5 times a year, yielding an annual enrollment of 320 BSN students. This is an increase of 200 students. The agenda item summary, again on page 26, speaks to the items that we have talked about, including NCLEX. They did have a continuing approval visit of November of 17, which was for the ADN program. They do have a visit with a new BSN program that is tentatively scheduled for the fall of 23, jointly with CCNE, their accreditors. The program and their NEC are here. for any questions. And I also want to always give Loretta the opportunity to add any more information regarding, again, programs in this program.
Thank you. And I know that Dolores was not here yesterday, so I'll kind of go over the data here real quick. This is a program that was originally approved in 2015 for the LA location, 2021 for the Ontario location. They are a bachelor's degree program. They are a member of the Orange County Long Beach Consortium. Because
Lori,
it's, yes.
I apologize. We're talking about a CNI in Santa
Correct.
Ana. Okay.
Yes. Is that not?
I don't think they have,
data?
and I could be wrong. I don't think they have.
Wrong. So sorry.
I don't know if they have two campuses. I thought they just had one campus in Santa Ana.
That might be accurate. I'll double check that. Thank you.
Mhm.
For the current enrollment for the Orange County area in the last 5 years, CNI has requested an enrollment growth request. They went from 94 students to 200 students annually. They increased their enrollment by 106 in 2019. They have not been back in front of our board since 2019. In Orange County, the board has approved 514 new student enrollments in that area, specifically in the last 5 years. This is the same location that Stanbridge has requested for enrollment increases in, and that Golden West College requested enrollment increases in earlier on in our board meeting. Both Stanbridge requests were denied and Golden West request was approved. So there has been an additional 80 students added to the 514 new student enrollment growth for Orange County to take into consideration when you're evaluating this enrollment increase. Thank you.
Any questions or comment from the board? Has the school been elevated onto the panel?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they are prepared for questions.
Thank you.
This is Robin Nelson. Do you want me to proceed?
Sure.
Okay, well, good morning. And I just, before I go through the things I want to emphasize, we only have one campus in Santa Ana. And this request, so I'll elaborate on this request. And we did have an ADN program that had 200 students in it. And then we were approved for a BSN program that also had 200 students in it. And I've come up with a new word as I've been listening to my colleagues. I think this is a replacement proposal, not a displacement proposal, because we're requesting to replace some of the approved enrollment that we had for the ADN, because we taught out the ADN program. And so it would be 120 annually with the 24 5 times a year for a total of 320. I did want to emphasize, because CNI College is in Santa Ana, and I believe most of you know that Santa Ana is the largest Hispanic city in the state of California, with 76.7 or 77% are Hispanic. And our student population is 88%. They declare they are non-white, 88%. And we have 45% of our student population is Hispanic. So we're looking to, as I said, to replace 24 every term of our students that were in the ADN program. And I think that's an important distinction, because we have already had students in the clinical area. So again, as I coined the phrase, replacement rather than displacement. We are, I believe, meeting the requirements that we've heard, and I'm not going to repeat them, but we have strong NCLEX criteria. We have the faculty facilities and financial support, because we've been supporting both an ADN and a BSN program until this past September. The one thing, and I think it was sort of alluded to, is there is a form that we are required to submit with our proposal called an EDP 11. And I have to give a shout out to our NEC because it verifies that we have the placements for these clinical rotations, which is, again, will be evenings is when the theory classes will be, and weekends for the clinical. And I do want to emphasize that our clinicals are all supervised by many master's prepared faculty. And I bring that up because our accreditor, the Commission on Collegiate Nursing Education, requires all faculty to be master's prepared, whether they're, adjunct or full-time. And that's something that, schools in the United States are working on, and certainly we are too. So the preparation of our faculty is, I think, will be exemplary as they all move to masters. And also, again, I believe we are in compliance with any BRN regulations. So I'm not going to repeat all the data, but I did one thing that's come up several times is about the placement of our graduates or graduates of the nursing programs. And, in 2022, 85% of our ADNs were placed. And to that distinction, we verify, our Career Services Office verifies with the employer their placement. So it's not just somebody telling us they're going to go to work there. It is verified. Again, our NCLEX was very strong with 86% in 2022, and our last of our ADNs are sitting at about 85%. One thing I think is interesting, again, and it's when you've been sitting and listening to all of the other schools, is that Sinai College, when in the midst of COVID, did not utilize the emergency percentages. We held at 75% direct care during COVID, and continued with the what is the requirement had been the 25% could be skills or SIM, but we had 75% direct care, and that was as a result of our partners wanting to have our baccalaureates, our ADN students, and moving to baccalaureate students in the clinical area. So I think that's something that was definitely very important. We have direct care hours, which I think has been a concern, and we're at 810 direct care hours for our students. And I, just hope that there is an opportunity to see that what we're doing is replacing our students in the clinical sites where our ADN students had been, and that this is, well established that we have the placements for the evening theories, or not placements for evening theory. We have the class and faculty for evening theory classes, and we have the clinical experience during the weekends, which again, it's an opportunity for the working student to be able to have a little different opportunity to continue to work. And I know Executive Officer Melby mentioned about the fatigue factor yesterday, and that's monitored. We check when they are working. We try to, that's the whole purpose for this weekend schedule, that they would be able to continue supporting their lifestyle and their families, but be able to continue and get their bachelor's degree. So I'm available for any questions if you have any. Thank you.
I have a question. Just so I'm clear, Robin, and I've read the report, and you said replacing students, and that makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is you had two separate programs, ADN, BSN.
We did.
Now the ADN program's gone.
Right. That's correct.
So my question is, even though it looks like we're adding 24 students 5 times a year, we're really just replacing what used to be ADN students.
That's correct. I'm sorry.
My question is, how many ADN students did you have when you had that program?
We admitted 45 times a year. in
Okay,
ADN.
and now it would just be 24 instead of
Correct.
40.
Correct.
Thank you.
This is Tricia. I want to just thank you for that clarification too. That really helps me kind of reset my brain. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
This is Vicky. I guess I'm still not understanding because in the report, it says that you're asking for an increase in enrollment. So is the report wrong?
That's the terminology. That's the BRN terminology, because it's increasing our existing BSN, but it's replacing what we had in the ADN. So it would be an increase in the total of our BSN from the 200, which is 45 times a year, to the 64 5 times a year. But it's replacing, as was brought out, you know, the ADN students that we were also admitting that Mr. Lawler referred to.
So if we were, I was just going to ask, if we were to make a motion, could we be very specific about that they're closing out the one program and this is a replacement program?
Vicky, their program has already been taught out. The BSN program has replaced the ADN program.
Okay.
And so that's already been done, and part of the proceedings when they brought forward their BSN program was that they were going to encompass their ADN students. And so she's correct that in our terminology, this is an increase because they had 40 students 5 times a year for enrollment of 200, and they're requesting to add an additional evening and weekend cohort. So it is an increase from what they've been approved.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah, so I wanted to make sure that I understood that as well. So when in February of 2021, CNI received the approval to go from being an associate degree program to a bachelor's degree program. They did not have a bachelor's degree prior to that. So when they were approved for the bachelor's degree program in 2021, their enrollment request for the bachelor's program was the 200 students. It was the 40 students 5 times a year. It's exactly what the ADN program was doing. So they have already absorbed all of the ADN student enrollment that they had into this bachelor's of program. So they are equal today before the board does any consideration for the enrollment increase. So that ADN program that did live within CNI was 40 students 5 times a year. That program is no longer offered. The BSN program that lives within CNI today is 40 students 5 times a year. We are today at the equal location. They're asking to change that enrollment to 64 students 5 times a year. That's an increase of 24 students each enrollment cycle. And that increases their annual students by 120. So they already have the 200 that was the ADN. That's already been replaced. In May of 2021, when they began that bachelor's program that was approved by the board in February of 2021.
Okay.
So this
So
truly is an increase.
The report is right.
The report is correct on the agenda item summary and the executive summary. So today there was just a little confusion when Robin was speaking. They are asking for an additional 120 students to be added to their baseline of 200. That was the enrollment that was given to them based on the teach out of their associate degree.
Okay.
And if I can just, add to that, that is absolutely correct, but we had the faculty, facilities, and the financial support because we were supporting the ADN program up until September of 2022.
And this is an impacted area, as we talked about yesterday.
Yes.
It's Orange County.
But we're going back to the same facilities where we have been with our ADN students.
I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
So Robin, you are going back to the same facilities where you had your ADN students.
Correct.
But you've already absorbed that number into your BSN program, correct?
You're correct. And what I'm going on the weekends, which is where we haven't been, based on the EDPs that have been submitted and verified from our clinical facilities, that they in fact can accommodate us on evening shifts, weekend shifts.
So it is an increase into those facilities, correct?
Well, but we weren't using them on the weekends.
Well, it's the weekends and night shift, I believe you said?
Well, they're available, and they approved the EDPs that we, that they sign off on, which we've heard about. I don't want to repeat that. They verified that they are available, which units, what times, and that there is no displacement of another school at that time on the weekends.
So in essence, it's like instead of the building being closed after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you're using it on the evenings and weekends for a separate cohort of students. Am I reading this correctly? The total program cost for one nursing student is $147,000?
That is correct, but that's starting that's starting right out of high school as a freshman, no transfer credit, and for, a little over 3 years total, all the 180 quarter units. So for a bachelor's degree.
That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I'd like to read to the board an email that was sent by Robin Nelson to the Orange County Long Beach Consortium regarding this request. So they have diligently worked in the last couple years to get this approved. This did go out, it looks like July 13th of 2022. So a couple months ago. And it says on the subject line, a proposal to meet the RN shortage. And then it says, good day, OCLB Consortium Colleges. This email is being sent to you as your name and school is on the OCLB Consortium membership list. There may be more than one representative from a school, or there has been a change. Please forward to the correct person, confer if there is more than one representative, or just respond to this email. This email is written to inform you that CNI College in Santa Ana, California is submitting to the October 2022 meeting of the Education Licensing Committee a request for an enrollment change effective February 2023. CNA College has been approved for both ADN and BSN pre-licensure programs, admitting 40 each term, 5 times a year for each program. We are teaching out the ADN program with the last cohort graduating September 2022. We are proposing to increase enrollment to the BSN program beginning February 2023 with enrollments of 40 each term, 5 times a year for the accelerated day schedule, and 40 each term, 5 times a year for an evening and weekend schedule. The BSN program is 13 terms, 10 weeks in length, 130 weeks. The BSN students have GEs for the beginning 5 terms, 50 weeks. And in term 6, the core nursing courses begin, non-clinical, and their first introduction to patients is term 7 in skilled nursing at the end of the foundation's fundamental classes for 3 weeks. The term 8 is beginning med-surg. My point is the impact of the enrollment change on the clinical sites will not be until April of 2024. We have affiliation agreements and EDPP 18 clinical capacity to support the clinical placements of 80 students, essentially 24/7, beginning April 2024. Please let me know by return email if there are any concerns. We are all committed to addressing the nursing shortage, and CNI College is focusing on preparation of BSN graduates. We also are here to support partnership that might be of value to your programs. See you at the next consortium meeting, and thank you for a response. This shows that this program director did reach out to the consortium, that they're using the consortium for the way that it is designed to allow these conversations. And it does look like the original ask was decreased. Is that correct, Robin?
Yeah, the original ask was higher, and then we reduced it to when we met with our education consultant, lowered it to 24 instead of 40.
Thank you. And then just so you know, that email did go out, and we did get quite a stir from our fellow nursing programs in that area. They were very, very worried about that. They only saw a couple ADN programs listed on the email rosters. They were concerned that it didn't go out to all of the areas, but Robin did ask for that to be forwarded out. They did say if they're granted this enrollment increase, it would basically shut down our program. Is there any way to see which clinical facilities granted them the clinical capacity for those amount of students? And so those are some of the conversations, and I'm sure we'll hear more in the public comment, but I did want to share that this was evidence that the program did their due diligence to reach out to the consortium, and that based on the feedback and working with the NEC, they did request their enrollment to be lower, and just hoping for some greater conversation from our schools that are saying that they might possibly be closed if this approval is granted.
And one thing I only heard from 2 schools. I wish the others would have responded so that we could have had a conversation.
Agree, Robin. That's what we're all hoping for, is really just getting the involvement of people that are affected by this to really have those conversations prior to coming to the board, but glad to be the facilitator of those conversations when it does get to our board.
Can I ask another question? How is this program different than the ones we turned down from Stanbridge yesterday? Because they're in the same basic vicinity area, aren't they, in Orange County?
We're in Santa Ana, and I believe so are, Stanbridge is a neighbor.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is these are impacted areas. It's the same impacted area, basically.
Yes, that is correct, Vicki.
Excuse me. I just want to affirm though that we've been in the facilities. We're just going on the weekends. I
understand. Thank you.
No, I know. I can't speak to the reason for Stanbridge denial.
I have my answer. It was yes. This is the same impacted area.
Is it just the clinical component that's going to be in the evening?
The clinical component's going to be on the weekends. The theory will be evenings during the week. So they would come to class in the evening for their theory.
So they have to go to class in the evening also.
Well, yes, but because there's a theory component for every clinical,
right.
But it's 1 day a week technically for at least that's the current day program. Now it may opt that they'd come 2 evenings to divide up the class time, so it's a shorter evening for them. But the weekdays will be the theory classes.
Thank you.
Robin, has a BSN cohort graduated yet? Now that you guys
it'll be in November of 2023 will be our first BSN graduates.
We do not have any current NCLEX data or success for the new BSN students. Is that accurate?
We do not. I think NCLEX wise, we anticipate the BSNs will perform comparable to our ADNs. And then again, the BSNs we're anticipating because of community demand that they'll have placements and we'll verify them. But you're correct, November.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board members? To be truthful, I am concerned over the fact that this is a new program. We have no NCLEX data. Your first cohort of BSN students are graduating in November.
That's correct.
While you are using, I don't know which facility, but while you're using them on the weekends, I am concerned that maybe other schools might also be using them on the weekend and be somewhat displaced. I don't know. I appreciate you reaching out to the consortium. I wished everyone did. So those are my concerns right off.
And President Trujillo, the one thing that comes to mind, and certainly would not. I think I looked to the clinical agencies the facilities to affirm, and I know sometimes that's doubted, but I look to them to affirm that there is availability and that we're not displacing other, schools. That was, that's to me is what we did that. We changed the EDP form and asked them to verify that. So I think the schools are kind of hard pressed to be able to confirm otherwise than what we received from our clinical partners.
Yes, and thank you for that. It's still an increase, and you have not had any, you haven't graduated a cohort yet, nor have you any NCLEX scores because you haven't graduated a cohort yet. So that's concerning for this amount of an increase.
Could I just ask, I certainly understand, we don't have the data that would affirm the competence of our graduates. Would reducing the number of 24 to 16, would that minimize the concern if we did 16 a term instead of 24?
I would just prefer to defer until we have at least the NCLEX data from your first cohort. Sorry, I have a throat issue right now, so I may not be talking very clearly. But I would be in favor of deferring this until we get those numbers.
Is that a motion, Dolores? Are you deferring as a motion, or are you just kind of throwing it out for conversation?
I could make it as a motion.
I would second that motion. This is Vicki.
I just want to clarify for my staff that have to take note that you your motion was
to defer enrollment, because this is an enrollment increase.
Correct.
Defer that enrollment increase until we at least look at those NCLEX scores and see how this first cohort progress through the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Did you want to go out to public comment?
I'm sorry, who's second?
Vicki.
Thank you.
Yes, we can go out to public comment.
This is Reza. If I could just ask a quick question. Before getting too far away from it, something kind of just grabbed my attention a little bit earlier that Ms. Nelson had mentioned, which was you rely on the clinical facilities to, and please correct me if I misstate what you said, that you rely on them to inform you if other schools are being, if students from other schools are being displaced. Is that?
That's what the form asks them to sign, that no other schools are being displaced. It's the form required that we have to complete from the Board of Nursing.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that that's coming from the form.
It's coming from the form.
Yeah, on the EDPP 18, and just so you know that that's been updated in the clinical facility data bank to a different kind of statement. With that statement, we have many clinical facilities refusing to sign, saying that they can't affirm that it will not displace. And then the other issues that have come into kind of question with that statement on our EDPP 18 forms is what do we do with that data? So there was an enrollment increase made 2 years ago by our board for Glendale Career College at that point to increase enrollments with Sharp Grossmont Hospital. And they signed an EDPP, they brought it to the board, and they said, in fact, that it would not have any displacement. And then we just heard from Southwestern College in the same San Diego area that that school, now called Marcia First, displaced 20% of their students because they went, instead of to Sharp Grossmont, they went to Sharp Chula Vista. So because we don't have any jurisdiction over those healthcare agencies, that statement on our EDPP 18 doesn't kind of hold any legal value. Part of the conversations that we've been really kind of working with our programs is to kind of consider the impact of the use of clinical facilities by the existing pre-licensure RN programs that they have to coordinate with. That any processes for clinical placements, use of consortiums for regional planning occur within them, and to go really kind of work with the other schools that are in that area to get that accurate kind of description of saying, just start the collegial conversations. And then in our new campus approvals, as well as our new program approvals, as part of the information that's to be turned into our NEC, they actually have to include a description of the collaboration, coordination of the efforts with any existing program and regional planning consortiums. And we specifically kind of went away from the healthcare facilities because we don't have any jurisdiction over them. And so that's kind of a change. It does kind of put a little conundrum on them when CSA, because that was a process that we used in the past, but the California State Auditor said that we couldn't reach out for letters of support or denial from our sister programs out there anymore because there was some confusion with that. So it's really a difficult position for our board to be in and the schools and stuff to be in when trying to see what information is accurate. And so just wanted to kind of share that process with that.
Thank you, Lori. Any other questions or comments before we go out to public comment from the board? Okay, BRN moderator, can you please open it up for public comment?
We will be opening for public comment now. I will be activating the question and answer feature. Please refer to the screen share for members of the public to see how they type in the request for comment. I've activated the question and answer feature. Members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by typing into the question box, "I would like to make a comment." Please remember, you will have 2 minutes to make your comments. I will not give a reminder as your time approaches. I do not want to interrupt you nor cause you to lose your train of thought. I will mute your microphone and inform you that your time has expired, and we'll move on to the next member of the public. I'll pause for a moment for members of the public to type in, "I would like to make a comment."
Before it's closed.
Elizabeth Hendershot would like to make a comment. 1 second, please.
Hendershot, and I am with Wise Place. We are a local Santa Ana shelter for women experiencing homelessness. Representatives from CNI College have been coming to the shelter and leading women's health and health workshops. These are very impactful for women experiencing homelessness that we serve in the shelter. And the professionalism of these students, the preparation they put into their presentations, and the delivery and just the amount of information has been incredible in the response from the women that we serve at the shelter and how much their value they receive by interacting with these students has been incredible. They've learned, some really key topics for them about, women's health, like menstrual health, as well as strokes and headaches, how to identify those kind of things, diabetes, just amazing things, heart health, COVID awareness and prevention. I could go on, but that's kind of, it's been so impactful to have these students present women's health topics. Thank you.
Thank you. Sigrid Sexton would like to make a comment. 1 second, please. Sigrid, are you able to unmute yourself? Oh, there you go.
And I'm with Long Beach City College, which is close to the area, and I'm also a board member for the consortium. So first of all, I'd like to say that I received the email from Robin, and she was given the database for our consortium. So I do believe that her email went out to all consortium members. And then secondly, I'd like to point out that oftentimes facilities have different personnel dealing with clinical placement questions. There's the clinical coordinator, who is the main person we generally call to ask if there's any availability. And then there's executive personnel who sometimes are met with, and they absolutely would like to support schools. And so they give votes of support and say that, of course, you're always welcome here. But the reality is, if you were to speak with the person in charge of coordinating the clinical placements at the facility, you're going to get a very different story. We have had occurrences in Long Beach of hospitals. The clinical placement person at the hospital has told me that at 2 hospitals, that they are getting pressure from their executives regarding clinical placement of private schools. And it's because they have been given money, they've been given donations. And so it's a mixed bag as far as what the answer is from any particular facility. I know that many times, though, there may be shifts where there are not students on the floor. You're looking at nurse fatigue when you're making a decision on whether to add a clinical placement. And so that muddies the waters as far as how to really ascertain whether or not you've genuinely got a clinical spot. And we have attempted a night and weekend program with our vocational nursing program and found issues with it. I mean, depending on how it's presented to students, sometimes students elect to work full-time and also attend these programs, and therefore it can be challenging. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Wickman would like to make a comment. 1 second, please. Mary, are you able to unmute yourself? I'll come back to Mary. Judy Corliss would like to make a comment. 1 second, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, this is Judy Corliss. I am a former board member, and I totally understand what the board members are going through and making all their decisions. But there is one thing that I haven't heard talked about today, and that is that many of the schools are using many more hours than required by the board, which also would have a jam up in the clinical sites. So if we were more clear about everybody using a similar number of hours that will allow excellent students in the end for the clinical sites, it might be a better use of all the clinical sites for everyone. There's a big disparity in it, whether they're using now the new 500 minimum or 800 or 600. I've heard all these things thrown around, but I think if we were to reduce the people that are using 800 and 700 and 600, maybe to what Lori has now recommended, and it's become statute, that 500 minimum plus your simulation, that might help the board to see that everybody's on the same playing field and a little bit more consistent. So that would be something I would look at if I were, again, on the board, as you all are trying to make these very difficult decisions. So thank you for hearing me, and maybe we could take a look at that, Lori and board members. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Judy. I don't know if you were on the board meeting yesterday, but that's exactly
Yes.
what happened with Golden West College and Riverside City College. They said that they dropped their unit requirement and their clinical requirements, which allowed for them to have this enrollment increase without having any changes.
Yes,
So
I
that's
was
exactly
on
what
all
both
the
of
whole
those
day.
did. So that was awesome. Thank you for pointing that
All
out.
righty. Thank you so much. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
So I circled back to Mary Wickman, but it looks like she's disconnected.
Can she
Board
place her
President.
comment? Can she
Nope.
write her comment in the box?
No. No,
Okay.
she just. So, Board President Trujillo, there are no other public requests for comments. Would you like me to close this window?
Yes, thank you.
President Trujillo.
I did it.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, is it better?
Who's-
Is it better or no?
Is that Mary
Whoops, no.
Wickman? Somebody is speaking.
That was, I think, me, Robin Nelson.
Oh, Rob,
I
okay.
I wanted to ask, and I was having a hard time hearing Sigrid Sexton's, her comments, but I mean, we don't have to address it here, but I certainly want to make sure I heard her correctly as far as, was there some reference to paying the hospitals? Was that, could hardly hear, as I said, was that statement made? Anybody clarify
The
that?
gist of what I heard from her comment, don't quote me, but I think she was speaking to how at a clinical facility, there may be kind of executive level folks who are expressed that they're willing to and happy to work with the school. And then on the other hand, there are the actual clinical placement staff at the facility who actually coordinate those, and it's a different story, I think, that they're hearing from those staff. It doesn't seem like they are being welcomed into the facility. I can't say that she didn't.
I mean, I couldn't, as I said, I couldn't hear it. I wanted to clarify as far as, pay to practice, that's my wording. So, which is not happening at CNI College, but I just wanted to, I wasn't sure, but I'll reach out to Sigrid. I have communicated with her before, so thank you.
Okay.
This is Betty. I just want to clarify something about this question. Is the issue here the increase that is going to the evening shift? Or is it in general the number of increases that people are concerned about?
Are you asking the board?
Yeah, I'm asking what people think about this because I'm not sure of what we're voting on here. Is it because of the increase that is going to be switched to the evening part of their program, or is it the addition altogether?
I believe it's both. Both impacts. It's in the Orange County area. Both will impact clinical space. The increase in the program, and also there's possible spots by the evening and weekends that might be taken. It could be another school can come in and possibly use those spots while we are waiting on the data from this first cohort. And we have no NCLEX scores to go on.
So just for clarification, Betty, the motion on the table is to defer the enrollment increase request. That doesn't mean that the board is denying that. It means that the board is not making a motion on that right now, and that they're asking the school to come back with NCLEX data. I do need to clarify in the motion, Board President, is it to defer until they have a quarter's worth of NCLEX data, or are we going on the annual pass rates for NCLEX data? Just so that we know that when our NECs and stuff, should we bring this back forward? And then I'm not sure if there's more public comment, if Mary Wickman was able to come back on. that'd be something I'd want to clarify, and then we need a vote.
Mary Wickman. Mary Wickman is back.
Okay, can we hear from Mary Wickman, please?
Sure.
This is Mary Wickman. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I'm glad I got it unmuted, and my name is Dr. Mary Wickman. I'm faculty emerita from Vanguard University, and I've had a long-standing relationship with CNI. I helped with consulting with their BRN proposal for the original ADM program and have kept a nice working relationship with them over time. And from my perspective, I wanted to attest to the quality of CNI's relationships with their community partners, including both hospitals and schools. And you've already heard a comment from one of their community partners as to the quality of students and what a difference that school has made. And I think that's true for many of the clinical placements where CNI is placed. I've had a working relationship with Robin Nelson through the California Association of Colleges of Nursing, and as the past Associate Dean for Vanguard University. Had extremely nice relationship with her, very collegial. She's helped me with faculty and clinical placements when we were short. Vanguard started a small program several years ago, so we had 56 students and certainly could use the help with faculty and suggested clinical placements. So I appreciate that collegiality. CNI has never infringed on placements for Vanguard University, and I would expect that same working relationship in the future. And I think their evening weekend program idea is brilliant. I think that will be very helpful for students who are unable to go to class during the day and then to do clinicals on the evening. So I support that request. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
With regard to E.O. Melby's question, quarterly versus annual, I think if we can get some data quarterly, that would be helpful. Does anybody else want to weigh in on that? Quarterly versus annual?
I think 1 quarter be adequate.
I do too. Thank you, Dolores.
So the motion is until they get 1 quarter's worth of data to come back. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. And then Vicki, you seconded that? Was that?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. We can go to a roll call vote.
All right. Dolores Trujillo votes yes. Vice President Mary Fagan.
Mary Fagan, yes.
Vicki Granowitz.
Yes. Granowitz, yes.
Granowitz, thank you. Patricia Nguyen.
Nguyen, yes.
David Lawler.
David, yes.
Jovita Dominguez.
Jovita, yes.
Elizabeth Woods.
Woods, yes.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
And thank you. We'll see you in 2024.
Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item, well, let me ask, it's 11:52.
I was going to suggest that we take a break. 30 minutes or 45? It's up to you, the board.
45.
45?
That's a lunch break, Dolores?
Lunch break.
Yeah,
Lunch
45.
break. So let's do until 12:45. Let's make it an even time.
Thank you.
11:53 now.
Sounds good.
12:45. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a good lunch.